Hey, welcome back to the show. I thought we'd check out Jeff Waters' classic thrash guitar tone from Annihilator's album Alison back in 1989, where he used the JCM800 with the Boss Overdrive in the front end and just had a really cool rhythm tone. So stick around, we'll check it out. Before we begin, I'd just like to give a really quick shout out to my local guitar store, Artie's Music in Townsville. And those guys in there have just been really cool, and I've known them all for years, and they've supported me with the channel just to try and order in and help me get whatever I need to make the show possible. So all that said, thank you guys. Anyway, Jeff Waters' classic thrash tone. If you've got the Boss Overdrive in front of a JCM800, you're going to be there 99%. But back in the day, Jeff had the original SD-1 Boss Overdrive, which is just the one with the two dials on the front, missing the tone. They're really similar overdrives, and they sound nearly identical, especially when you've got the tone just straight up and down at 12 o'clock. The Boss Overdrives are a little bit different than the standard Tube Screamer style overdrives, where these use an actual asymmetric clipping through the circuit, meaning that on the waveform that the distortion is actually carried through, only one side of that waveform is actually clipped. So it's distorted on one side of the waveform, and then the clean sound is being carried on the other. And so you get a real sort of raunchy blend of the two, which makes these overdrives just a little bit different than that of the Tube Screamers. We'll go through that later in a different video, just with the symmetrical and asymmetric clipping. But for this one, it's pretty unique, and they're really cool sounding overdrive. But for my signal chain today, I've just got the Fortin Zool Plus pedal in the 4-cable method, using the key in and out feature. In the front end, into the Boss SD-1, and then into the effects loop after the Zool, we've got the Empress Reverb, and then just the JCM800. That's all we're using today. And then for my guitar, I've got my Jackson KVX King V. It's loaded with the Seymour Duncan SH6 ceramic pickups, and these are what Jeff Waters always used on his guitars. They just give a really sort of crunchy attack. They're a lot harsher than the Alnico pickups, but they're really cool, and it just suits this tone really well. It's just such a really simple setup. I really like to have the reverb delay sort of thing in the background, just to really recreate that epic sort of 80s thrash tone, but it's just such a hard hitting rhythm. It's just got that really thick, chunky sort of chug about it. And Jeff always said with his overdrive, he just ran it so both the dials were at 12 o'clock. And it's not something I would necessarily do. And until I knew that, I had the tone dialed in differently with the overdrive. I had it more of like the level pushing a little bit more, but the drive right down, because I just found on those thicker chords, things are a little bit gravelly when you push the drive too hard. You can hear it really sort of thickens things up there. And I just saw that when you push that drive a little bit more, things do sort of break up on those chords, and the chords start to chunk out a little bit and get that sort of the gravelly sort of top end on them, which I never really thought I liked that tone, but as I was playing this one more, it suits this album and it suits the song. And what's more, when you get to more sort of riffs and leads and solo style work, the notes are a lot richer. Whereas if you have it the way that I usually set up these sorts of overdrives, more of like a sharper sort of Dave Mustaine style attack, a lot of the solos and things just sound a lot scratchier and less liquid and a little bit less sustain in them. and that's really cool. It's a really sort of balanced tone between guitar solos and riffs, so you can do whatever, and I think that's really good. And it leaves us with the JCM800, and I really love this amp. It really is cool. It's got its limitations, sure. It's just the one channel. It's not as much headroom as I originally thought they were going to have. I think my old JCM2000, when I had it on the clean channel and you press the crunch mode onto that, it used to get you in the ballpark of what this head actually sounds like, but I believe it had a lot more headroom. You could push the overdrives a fair bit more before things started to get really gravelly and break up. But at the same time, that's what makes this amp really cool, because you can really sort of change the tone by driving that front end. I used to use a lot of active pickups, but I found the passives just give me that little bit more room and articulation to really push the head with overdrives in a way. You still end up clipping it and being right on the verge of it, just like we are right now. I think that the headroom is absolutely full just with the little bit of signal that we've got going through it now. And that really is on the verge of just too much in the front end, but without the Boss overdrive engaged at all. You can see the settings there. We'll just go through it a little bit and just work it out. And something that I've found with the JCM800, the tone controls don't really do a hell of a lot. They're all passive tone controls in the tone stack for the bass, middle and treble, meaning that they don't actually add any boost to the signal going through the amp. All they do is cut. So essentially if you had them all just dimed, then you're getting the total raw tone of the amp. But having them all at pretty much 12 o'clock or thereabouts and just changing slightly from there, you'll get the rough tone in the ballpark, but it doesn't change much. The presence and the master volume, they're on the output side of the amp, and the preamp is tapped off the second clipping stage of the 3 gain stages within this amp. So it's just super straightforward. It's extremely loud though, even for the 20 watts I find just in the room. And even if I have it on the low power mode and I'm jamming away in the room, it is just really loud, even at really low volumes. But for the recording today, we're going through the 2 notes Torpedo Captor X silently, just so I'm not deafening the birds in the room at all. And for that, we're using the Dave Mustaine cabinets used with an SM57 in front of it. And this is just a really cool IR in that built-in software, and I've been loving it lately. But usually just practicing in the room, I'll be going through my 1936V cabinet here, loaded with the G12 vintage speakers. It sounds really cool, but it is just a really loud amp for anyone that's just new to getting one of these. And I'd like to think that by the time I've made these videos, you can really get a good understanding if this amp is going to be the right one for you or not. But I just find it really cool. It's one of the favorites I've ever had so far. This JCM800 has the EL34 power tubes. A lot of the early ones that were sent over to America actually had the 6550 power tubes, and that was because when they stepped down the voltage, they thought that they'd just run a little bit safer. So for those 6550 power tubes, they've got more of a chunk going on, they've got more headroom, but they're also a little bit less on the gain. So, but again, that's just personal preference with a few. I'm not sure exactly which version Jeff Waters had, whether he's had the EL34s or not. I'm guessing it did, because this sound to me is spot on. And pushing this preamp a little bit too far, things get really thick and really muddy fast if you go past that 6 or 7. You can hear there with these EL34 ones, it just gets really thick, and if you add any overdrive to that, such a cool song. But anyway guys, there you have it. It's the classic Jeff Waters thrash tone, Boss overdrive in front of the JCM800. Absolutely killer tone, I love it. I really want to deep dive with this amp and just want to test out what really works with it, with so many different overdrives, pushing the front end, trying to use the effects loop, just really just work out the strengths and weaknesses with this, and have a great time doing it. But all that said guys, take care. I'll see you next time. Bye.